Well, the Stonewall was really the moment that a small movement became a large movement. I joined Mattachine in 1958. They had 16 members in New York City. People made fun of me for being in the Mattachine Society. People did not want to join an organization because they didn't want to be associated with that masculine lesbian or that trans person, or somebody who was more feminine than they were. They felt that as long as everyone thought all homosexuals were the stereotype, that they were safe in their own lives. And I think that finally, over the decade before Stonewall, Mattachine kept raising the issue of getting on. I was the first one on radio, the first one on TV without a mask, asking questions that people phoned in and whatever. And this caused a very positive question. Went from how can we cure them? They're all sick. They're all degenerates. They're all morally corrupt. To are they sick or aren't they? And so once you started getting a public debate, and I found out as a young gay activist in the 60s before Stonewall, if you go out to a civic group and present the argument that we are a group, a minority group, and by the definition of minority group, if one person does something bad, everyone's blamed for it. Like 2 guys run off to Russia as spies and all homosexuals are spies. That kind of stuff went on all during the 60s. And finally, I think homosexuals started getting a better sense of self-worth. So finally, when this was the last dancing bar in New York City and they shut it down, I think they finally had reached the point where we're tired of taking this anymore. And especially here in the Village with all this central hub of gay life, they started fighting back. And the police were not quick to get reinforcements because the local precinct had been paid off. And I know cops that were on patrol in Brooklyn those nights, and they laughed. They said, what, the cops that officers in the Village can't even control, the fags are getting totally out of hand? And I think that created a spark. Someone told me he was watching the crowd and things were getting a little raucous, but somebody threw a bottle. And the bottle broke on the wall behind a policeman who was standing there like that. And the policeman jumped like that. And they saw that it combobbled or, disoriented the policeman, this breaking bottle. And that's when they started picking up and throwing pennies and stones and small rocks. And that started a riot. And because Mayor Lindsay was mayor, the police were on their best behavior. So when the girls would have chorus lines saying, we are the Stonewall girls, we wear our hair in curls, and kick up their feet, the police would advance towards them. They wouldn't advance towards them breaking their heads open with billy clubs because they were under the public eye at that time.
The kind of freedom, a park, a geography, a landmark, a spirit, and something shared. Gay people didn't always have that. We were homosexualities. Very different people. Stonewall was like Noah's Ark. There were 2 different types of gay people everywhere. We knew we were gay, we'd stick together that way, but we're very different gays and made fun of each other and didn't feel this kind of cohesiveness. After that, we did. There was more propaganda work on this street than in Leningrad, St. Petersburg in 1917. And it couldn't have just started because all these people that could make pamphlets and write speeches and do these things had to have done that earlier. So it was there, like Crompton's cafeteria in San Francisco. The resistance was there. It was the first time, I think, that we as gay people, 14 of us, to get together and go somewhere loud as could be, the zoo or somewhere. And we just weren't, going to take it anymore. No, I was here. This was my hangout spot. So I was here all the days, but Stonewall is their first night. It's a spontaneous night. Everybody, other nights came to, get theirs in, and it was understandable. But the first night was a spontaneous night. That was Stonewall. That's what made the second night, the third night so important. And everybody wanted to share not being there the first night. It was sort of sad. But there was jealousy even.
And I think during that time period, you also have to remember there was so much civil unrest in the 60s going on in the United States of America. The civil rights movement, the women's rights movement, protests against the Vietnam War. So I think the riots really kind of occurred because they were just tired of being oppressed during that time period especially. And they were seeing that there was so much other kind of movements that were happening and being successful. So I think they really wanted to stand up and fight back because they were tired of being oppressed. And I think our job as current owners and keepers of history of the Stonewall Inn mission is to take that legacy and spread it to the places, faces, and spaces that need it the most, and places around the world that are still waiting for their Stonewall moment.